Hi everyone, this is Margaret Manning with 60andMe. I read two articles today that were related on a topic that I think will be of interest to our community, and I'd like to get your feedback on them and start a conversation. A few months ago, we wrote an article on the topic of depression and how boomers as a generation are being treated more for depression than any other group. And this was kind of surprising. And so I reached out to the Facebook community, 60andMe, and I asked them for their thoughts on this. And some of the feedback was really interesting. Most women agreed that this was a very traumatic time for boomers, in their opinion. All of us seem to, in their opinion, have equipped themselves with ways to deal with it, but the underlying was a sense of failure. And part of that was explained by one woman who said that we had high hopes for our world, that as boomers we had this kind of vision of the world being a better place, and through our efforts making it even better, and it just hasn't happened when you look around at some of the challenges. So that feeling of failure, and one woman even mentioned guilt, that we feel guilty because we're not good enough, not worthy enough. We didn't do what we had set out to do. And then others mentioned, of course, the recession and the fact that money is a cause of depression because a lot of us lost so much of it. And, we didn't have a plan for retirement. And of course, that left us, in a very vulnerable position. Others talked about their fear for not just themselves, but for their children and grandchildren, and how the world has become such a dangerous place in some people's view, that fear of what's next and the job situation being a little bit tenuous, that it wasn't a positive environment for family to grow up in. Other people talked about the obsession with youth and how this was very depressing for older women who historically, had a place in the family, a place in society. But now not only are they perhaps considered invisible, but just not worthy either, just not even of value. There's just no purpose. And these were all things that contributed to an agreement that depression was a very big concern for women over 50, women and men over 50. The second article I read was by Shelley Emling, who is an editor for Huffington Post 50. And Shelley wrote this brilliant article about an experience that she had on a train. I think it was called How Everyone's Bad Behavior is Making Me a Very Angry Woman. And, we had talked about this kind of grumpy old man, old woman syndrome that happens when you get older. But this one really had a substance to it. And it was a story that she told of a woman on a train in a quiet car, where you're meant to be quiet, no phones, who had to take an emergency call. Her son was in an accident and she was just panicked and talking. And Shelley describes how people in the train started to yell at her and, swear and tell her to be quiet, and that she was being selfish, and this was the quiet car. And this poor woman, of course, was in tears, and Shelley, was so distraught by it, and just so disturbed by how people had reacted. And the second part of it, though, was how Shelley says that she felt she couldn't do anything. She just, didn't know what to do. And I thought about this. So much has happened in my life, I'm sure yours too, where something will happen, you'll know it's not right, it just doesn't feel good. Or, there's been even situations where there's been crimes committed and people just have been videoing them or, talking about them on Facebook as if they were like something that didn't happen to anyone that they knew or that anyone they cared about. So this lack of compassion and this lack of caring for each other is, I think, another reason that everyone's impacted now by our technology and our devices and things that keep us always so conscious of the world around us being such an unsafe place. But more than that, I think it's got to do with compassion and caring for one another. I just read a quote today by Simon Sinek, who's an author, and he said something like, just giving someone a compliment or just, smiling at someone is a gift, and that we should give gifts to people more often. It doesn't have to be money or something elaborate, that we just give more to each other and be more loving and kind. And other people I've been reading today, commenting about Facebook and how that detaches you from the real world, how our technology has given us a way to kind of live a fantasy life that's not real. It's so self-absorbed and kind of self-contained. So anyway, that's kind of my day today. Those two articles just struck me and gave me a sense of, how we've got a world that's so rich and so abundant and so beautiful, but we're struggling emotionally to deal with the reality of where we fit, as human beings, where the relationships are, where the compassion is. And so I'd love to get your thoughts. I'd love to have a dialogue on this. And I guess the question is, putting aside the fact that we've got plenty of reasons to feel depressed and maybe a little bit unhappy and sad, what do you think we can do to bring each other closer together, to create more of an environment where we feel accountable to one another and we feel more caring towards each other? What are some of the things that you do perhaps, or that you've watched others do that we could perhaps start to practice and spread some love and compassion in the world? I'd love to get your feedback. And just to remind you, by the way, that if you're feeling low, there's just a few things I want to remind you about, because we talk about it all the time on 60andMe. And that is, just take care of yourself, but stay healthy, get exercise, make friends, don't isolate yourself. Talk to people about what's going on and share, your concerns and your life experience, and listen to them, listen back. We need each other. We need each other in this time. So anyway, please leave your comments below the article here, and let's just get a conversation going. I'd love to get your feedback. Take care, everyone. Have a really good day. Take care of yourselves.